Just 1 year after the release of Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers was back for his revenge. We're going to talk about it right now. Hey, welcome back to my channel. And that's right, folks, Michael Myers is back for his revenge in the sequel that came out 1 year later after the release of Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This film came out October 13th of 1989, where 4 came out in October of 88. So 1 year later, we had our sequel. So this was definitely a rushed production. It's rated R, hour and 36 minutes long, had a similar budget of 4 with $5 million, and upon release, it only made 11.6. This is the lowest grossing film in the Halloween franchise. Yes, even Part 3 made more than this film. Now, for this film, there was a couple different directions that were thought of going. One was that Jamie, at the end of 4, we see her stab her adopted mom and stand at the top of the steps with the scissors in her hands, and Loomis going batshit crazy. The thought was there was a script that was written that had Jamie taking up the mantle of evil in this film. Well, Mustafa Akkad did not like that idea, so that got thrown out. So what they basically did was they did what Halloween 2 did to the original Halloween. We picked up right after the events of Part 4. Matter of fact, we get a recap of Part 4 at the beginning of this film. But let's get into it. Who do you got? Now, Deborah Hill and John Carpenter were bought out. They were gone off the franchise before they started production in Part 4. But Deborah Hill recommended this director for this film. And this director is a French director, and his name's Dominic Othen-Girard. I think that's how you say his middle name or whatever. Stick to 2 names, people, please. Now, Donald Pleasance, the ever-loyal Donald Pleasance, came back as Dr. Loomis. And this is probably his most unhinged performance as Dr. Loomis by far. Danielle Harris was back as Jamie. Ellie Cornell was back as Rachel. Unfortunately, she's killed about 25 minutes into the movie, unceremoniously. Wendy Foxworth is Tina, which I know is a very contentious character for a lot of folks. Don Shanks was brought in to play Michael Myers instead of George Wilbur. George Wilbur will come back in 6, which we're going to talk about Friday. But for this film, Don Shanks came in to play Myers. And Bustar was back as Sheriff Ben Meeker. Like I said, this movie picks up right after the end, right at the end of the 4th film. But first we get our credit sequence, which I do like this credit sequence. We see this butcher knife, and you hear it slicing this pumpkin. You see this pumpkin, and then at the end of the credit sequence, you see this jack-o'-lantern, and then we see right at the end of Part 4 where the state police are coming racing back to where Jamie and Rachel are, and we see Myers standing up, the cop shooting him going into the mine. But that's where we pick up new footage where we see the police, we see Myers starting to trying to crawl out of the mine, and they throw dynamite down, and this explosion happens behind Myers, but he's already out of the mine, and he goes into this river. Floats down this river to this fishing net, grabs it, starts pulling himself out of the river, and then we see this old man, this old hermit who has a talking parrot. Why the talking parrot's there? I don't know, but it's there. And Myers tries to kill him, but he's so wounded he passes out. Okay. Then we fast forward to 1 year later, and we see Myers laying on this altar or whatever. It's like a big rock in this guy's shack. And we see Jamie in this house. And she's strapped to machines like she's in a clinic or something, which she is. And she starts having a nightmare and visions of Myers. And we see Michael come to life and put his mask on, and he kills the old man. Jamie has an episode from seeing these visions. They're playing up the psychic link more in this movie. Definitely, they pushed that further in this film. Now, this beginning scene with the old man hermit is not the original way they shot it. If you have the Blu-ray, they show the scene, the cut scene, where it was a younger guy, a younger hermit that lives out in the woods. And originally in the script, he would take Myers back to his cabin, which is pretty much the same shack, I guess. They just reshot it with an old man instead of a young man. I don't know why they reshot this, because this would tie in more with Part 6, which I know they didn't know where they were going. But when, supposedly in the script, the original script, when the young guy took him back to the cabin, there was runes and all these kind of ancient signs around. I think that would have tied into where the Man in Black comes from, and obviously where we go in The Curse of Michael Myers, but honestly, I don't think they knew where the hell they were going with Part 6, so it doesn't matter. They reshot it with the old guy. Myers wakes up a year later, kills him, and now Myers is back. Next morning, we're introduced to Rachel laying by Jamie's bedside. And Loomis comes in, and we're introduced to Tina. I know a lot of people don't like Tina. She gets on my nerves a little bit, but probably not as much as some people. I know some people really hate this character. And we set up that her and Rachel are best friends, and she cares about Jamie. And we understand that Jamie's been in this clinic for a year. She can't speak, which was this movie's #1 spot where they messed up. Having Danielle Harris quiet for 45 minutes of the film. Halfway through the film, she finally starts talking. It was a stupid plot point, but they put it in there. I don't like that plot point, but whatever. And then we get on it. Rachel's going out of town for a few days to meet her parents. And Rachel goes home, and this is where Myers is there and stalking her. And Jamie sees this vision of, they have a Doberman at the house, and she's in like art class at the clinic, and she has this vision of some dog getting killed. So they think something's wrong. So Loomis calls the house and tells Rachel to go outside and call the police and get out of the house. Myers is actually in the house, and we get these 2 bumbling cops, and they even give him music. Now, I heard from what I read that this was an homage to Last House on the Left with the cops in that film, but here it doesn't work. It's dumb. It's not funny. And it just comes off as misplaced, honestly, in my opinion. I know some people like it. Me, I think it's misplaced and just a horrible idea for a Halloween film. Not that you can't laugh at these films. I'm not saying that. But it's just so out of place, and it comes out of left field for everything that's set up before it. And all of a sudden you got this dumb music with these cops. It's like it just doesn't work. And I think that goes to a bigger problem with the director of this film, which I'll get into in a little bit. So Rachel goes back in the house. The cops clear the house, say nothing's in there. She goes back in, gets unceremoniously killed by Myers with scissors to the shoulder. So one of our beloved characters from Part 4 is gone. I think that was another huge mistake this film made. So basically now Tina becomes the lead with Jamie for a little while. And Tina's going to this party at this farm with a couple of her friends and her boyfriend, whose name is Michael, who gets killed in this back alley of this beer store, which is pretty cool because he's kind of a dick anyway, so seeing him get killed was not much of a big deal. They go to this farm. Michael Myers actually picks Tina up with this different mask on. She gets intercepted by the cops because Jamie has this vision of her getting killed, so the cops find where she is, and these bumbling cops take her to the party. Well, Michael Myers follows along, and before you know it, there's murder and mayhem. We get a guy with a pitchfork through his chest, which is a pretty cool scene. K&B Effects did the makeup effects for this film. And then a girl gets killed with a Sith, which is cool too. You don't see it, but you see the blood going. And then Tina gets killed now she is heroic. She does try to save Jamie, and she gets killed for her troubles. And then Loomis hatches his plan, along with Sheriff Meeker, where they're going to go to the Myers house, which is now turned into a mansion. It's huge. And they set a trap for Myers. They put Jamie up in this window doing her hair, and they have cops stationed all over the place. And the cops get called away because Myers showed up somewhere else and killed a bunch of people, which they did have a scene in the script where Myers shows up and kills a bunch of SWAT guys. Now, if they would have filmed it, it would have been awesome. It was a missed opportunity. They didn't have enough money, so they cut the scene, which is unfortunate. All the cops leave except for 2 cops, Loomis and Jamie. The one cop's outside in the car. Myers pulls up, kills him brutally, and then Loomis tries to reason with Myers, which by this point Loomis knows there is no reasoning with the boogeyman. Myers slashes him up the chest, throws him off this thing, and then goes upstairs to get Jamie. The cop shoots him like 6 times. Myers still comes, kills the cop. Jamie gets away. Then we get our chase through the house, down and up the laundry chute, and then we have our final confrontation. Loomis is still alive. Oh, I forgot to mention about the scene where Michael takes his mask off and he's a tear going down his face. Another dumb. Why they had it in there, I don't know. I don't agree with why the director put that in there. We'll get into that in a minute. Loomis has a chain net set up into one room. He brings it down on Myers, shoots him with a tranquilizer gun, and then beats the shit out of him with a board that he rips off the window. And Myers passes out. We cut to the jail. Myers is in jail. They leave his mask on, which I don't understand why the police would let him leave his mask on, but they do. He's all chained up, and then the mysterious man in black, who we see earlier in the film, get off the bus right in front of the drugstore where Jamie got her costume in Part 4. Also the same drugstore that's in the Sandlot, I like mentioning that. Shows up, kills all the cops, blows up the jail cell, gets Myers, and he's gone. And Jamie goes in, and there's smoke and a little bit of flame, and she sees Myers gone, and all you hear is her whining, no, and it's the end of the film. That's Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Things I like about this film are returning characters. Unfortunately, Rachel gets killed off unceremoniously. Why they would kill one of our beloved characters from Part 4 that quickly into the film, I don't know. And then they give us this character, Tina, she doesn't get on my nerves, but she's no Rachel. It's like, why didn't they kill her and leave Rachel till at least till the end of the film? I never understood that. It was just not smart screenwriting. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but it was probably came down to money. They didn't want to pay Ellie Cornell more money from the fourth one, so they gave her less screen time and killed her off. I would assume that because they were penny pinching on some of these films. Don Shanks' Myers, compared to George Wilbur, he's much taller. And since this movie came out a year later, it's glaringly obvious that there's a big difference in Michael Myers. Like, he grew a foot, not that much, but he grew, he's taller, and just a bigger guy. Now, I've seen interviews with Don Shanks, seems like a nice guy. I do not care for his interpretation of Michael Myers. I think George Wilbur's was better, in my opinion. I don't like the mask in this one. I think the mask is a little better than part 4, but still the mask is lacking. This movie is definitely bloodier than part 4, for sure, and there's some good scenes, and it's decently shot. I just don't think the director understood horror. It was his idea to have the tear coming down Myers' face when he took his mask off, which I think was a huge mistake. This guy is supposed to be the personification of evil. John Carpenter would have never signed on that. And if John Carpenter I know John Carpenter had nothing to do with this film. They didn't ask him anything. But if it doesn't go by John Carpenter's playbook, you probably shouldn't be using it in your film. I don't mind expanding the mythology, and they did with the Man in Black, but here's the other thing about the Man in Black. Even the writers, when they filmed those scenes, didn't know who the identity of the Man in Black was. That's why in part 6 we got this whole conspiracy about the Thorn mythology and this, these druids and all this stuff. That's because they were trying to clean up what happened, what they introduced in part 5. So we'll talk about part 6. That review will be out Friday. I think the movie's okay. It's okayly directed. I think the director did an okay job. There's some nice scenes. There's a few suspenseful parts. It's definitely gorier. It's a step down from part 4, though, I think, in my opinion. I used to love this as a kid. Now, since I'm older now, I don't like this movie as much. I can still sit down and watch it. It's a hell of a lot better than Halloween Resurrection, which that movie is a dumpster fire of shittiness all over the place. It just shits awfulness, that movie. I hate that movie. Thanks, Busta Rhymes, for ruining Halloween and just terrible screenwriting and directing. We'll get into that eventually. Probably next year I'll do that movie. Oh, I'll have a lot to say about that shit show. Anyway, Halloween 5 is definitely more enjoyable than that, but it's definitely a step down from part 4. I would give Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, a 6 out of 10. I don't think this film has not aged well. There's a lot of problems with some of the characters, the directing. I don't think the director understood horror all that well. I heard he was even telling Greg Nicotero on set, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking," or something like that. Like, Greg Nicotero loves horror. He's been in horror forever. I don't know. I just don't think the director understood the genre, really. And I don't think he's ever directed another horror film after this, honestly. I don't think he's directed another American film after this, which is probably a good thing. Anyway, yes, 6 out of 10 for Halloween 5. What are your thoughts on the sequel? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video. I greatly appreciate it. I will be back on Friday with Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. You all take care, and I'll be back soon. Thanks. Bye.